How's it going, Paul? I just wanted to talk to you for a minute. It sounded like you had an issue with one of our deputies. When you're making the comments that you're making on Facebook, that kind of brings issue to me.
This police officer in West Virginia just showed up at this guy's house because he got upset at something that this guy had posted on Facebook about police officers.
The direction that our department's going in is a lot different than what it was 30 years ago. Secondly, when you bring up Howard Ferris, you bring up somebody that's important to me because he was like my uncle. When you make comments like that kind of upsets me, you know what I'm saying?
But when this guy says this was freedom of speech, that triggers this police officer. And even though he's at this guy's home without a warrant, when his feelings get hurt, he unconstitutionally grabs the guy and arrests him.
Freedom of speech. I can say whatever
listen,
I want.
I could 100% write up a warrant for you.
I'm not.
You want me to do that? Okay, that's fine. I'll gladly do that for you. I came
I
down.
gotta go to work.
Well, I came down. Hold on, I'm talking to you. You're not walking away from me. No, get back over here. You want me? Turn around.
Unbelievably, this police officer admits several times on the body cam footage that this arrest was retaliation against this guy's protected free speech under the First Amendment.
I came down here to talk to you like a man and be cool with you, and you wanted to say something like that to me.
Yeah.
Cool. It's fine. Good job there. For him to make some of the comments that he's making, I'm not going to put up with that.
So because this police officer was butthurt about something that this guy Paul said on Facebook, he arrested him without a warrant from his home, threw him in jail where he sat for 2 days, which then caused Paul to lose his job, even though, because the charges were baseless, the prosecutor later had to drop the charges. Why was that police officer smiling? I'm going to break down this footage for you, and you haven't seen a half of it yet, and point out every single constitutional violation that this guy recorded himself committing on video. Here's yet another West Virginia video. I almost wish these would come from other states, but they keep coming from West Virginia. And in fact, this one comes only one county over from my last West Virginia video from Barber County. This one is in Grafton, West Virginia, in Taylor County, West Virginia. And this deputy that's featured in this video actually has the same last name, Mayle, M-A-Y-L-E, as the deputy for the county over that was in the last video.
So why do I need to step out of this vehicle?
Because there's a Supreme Court case ruling called Pennsylvania v. Mims that a law enforcement officer can give you a lawful directive to exit the vehicle. And
so what happened here? Apparently this guy Paul O'Brien had observed a Deputy McQueen who had set up a speed trap, I take it. He was running radar, and then Paul joked on Facebook that he wished that he had an M80 firecracker in order to set it off and give Deputy McQueen, because he was across the street from his residence, in order to give Deputy McQueen a heart attack. And in the same Facebook post, which I don't have or I'd show it to you, Paul blamed this agency for the deaths of 3 different people over the years. So he's criticizing this department he thinks are responsible for these 3 deaths. Now, one of the individuals who died that was mentioned by Paul is like a close friend or something to the deputy from this video. So he's PO'd about that. And he's presumably mad about the M80 comment. So there's no warrant, there's no arrest warrant, no search warrant, nothing like that. He just shows up to Paul's residence. And this is the body cam footage filmed by the other officer, Deputy Ware, that shows the full interaction.
How you doing? Good. Oh, man. What's up? Can I help you? Yeah, I'm looking for Mr. O'Brien. He's inside. Okay, you want to go get him? I need to talk to him. Thank you. No, I just need to talk to him real quick about an issue.
Just real quick, let's step back and understand where geographically this is occurring and whether that matters constitutionally speaking, and also why this police officer says that he's there at this location. So I have the police report, and this is what it says. On Wednesday, July 12th, 2023, at approximately 9:43 hours, this officer arrived at the above-stated residence to speak with Mr. Paul O'Brien in reference to a matter that was brought to this officer's attention in reference to Mr. O'Brien making comments of wishing he had an M80 to give Deputy C. McQueen a heart attack while conducting radar patrol the previous matter. I don't know if that's supposed to say morning. This officer made contact with Mr. O'Brien. The officers were there to make sure everything was okay between Mr. O'Brien and Deputy McQueen. So according to his own words, he goes to Paul's residence, to where he lives. No warrant. He just wants to make sure that he's okay. And if we look at the satellite view of this location, he basically walks up, and this appears to be the stepdad's house, and he talks to the stepfather here first, and he says, "I'm here to talk to Paul, go get him." So this is the location where you walk out of the house, up some steps, and to the parking area. Again, there's no warrant, so the officer is there pursuant to a consensual encounter, or what's known as a knock and talk. And that's just a so-called consensual conversation where you talk to somebody if they're willing to talk to you, and if they ask you to leave, you have to leave. You can't detain them. You can't arrest them without a warrant. It's just a conversation, or it's just supposed to be. But then things go sideways. Let's continue.
How's it going, Paul? Oh, pretty good, man. I just wanted to talk to you for a minute, because it sounded like you had an issue with one of our deputies.
Yeah, he followed me home last night.
He followed you home last night? Zane?
I don't know.
Who was it? Well, listen, man, when you're making the comments that you're making on Facebook, that kind of brings issue to me. You know what I mean? For one, the direction that our department's going in is a lot different than what it was 30 years ago. Okay? Secondly, when you bring up Howard Ferris, you bring up somebody that's important to me, because he was like my uncle.
So the name being mentioned is Howard Ferris, and apparently he was a lawyer in Grafton, West Virginia, and it looks like he died back in like 2011. And for some reason, Paul blamed the sheriff's department here and believed that they had something to do with the death, and criticized the sheriff's department for that.
Okay, so if there was anything negative or ill or anything like that towards him, I would have 100% looked into that, okay? Yeah. So, and when you make comments such as if you had an M80, you give him a heart attack, that can be taken as a terroristic threat, okay? So, I've always been cool with you, I've always been 100 with you, but when you make comments like that kind of upsets me, you know what I'm saying? So instead of
bashing, freedom of speech, I can say whatever I want.
Listen, man, I fought in the Marines, I'm 100% for freedom of speech, but when you make certain comments, that passes freedom of speech, you know what I'm saying? When you're saying you wish you had an M80 to give a deputy a heart attack, that I could 100% write up a warrant for you. You want me to do that? Okay, that's fine. I'll gladly do that for you. I came down.
Go to work.
Well, I came down. Hold on, I'm talking to you. You're not walking away from me. No, get back over here. You want me? Turn around. That's fine. You want to do that? We can do that. No problem, bud.
By the way, the law is clearly established that an individual has a First Amendment right to express profanity during an interaction with law enforcement. See Cone versus California, U.S. Supreme Court, 1972. You can also look at Lewis versus City of New Orleans from 1974, U.S. Supreme Court, where they reversed a conviction under a Louisiana statute that provided that, quote, "it shall be unlawful and a breach of the peace for any person wantonly to curse or revile or to use obscene or opprobrious language toward or with reference to any member of the city police while in the actual performance of his duty."
I came down here to talk to you like a man and be cool with you, and you wanted to say something like that to me.
Yeah.
Cool. It's fine. You good job there.
All right.
Anything on you you're not supposed to have?
No. You can take that stuff out.
I don't understand why you got to be like this when I'm coming down here to talk to you and be cool with you.
What's your reasoning?
My reasoning is you're threatening one of my officers.
Oh, really?
That's my reasoning.
Here, the officer really screws up. maybe the reason that he was there to engage in a consensual encounter was because he believed that Paul was threatening one of his officers. Had he believed so, he could have attempted to obtain a warrant for, as he called it, terroristic threats, and showed up at Paul's house and arrested him. But he didn't do that. He decided to show up for a knock and talk for a consensual encounter. And then when Paul wasn't interested in continuing that conversation, he said, I have to go to work, and he goes to leave.
I came down.
gotta go to work.
Well, I came down. Hold on, I'm talking to you. You're not walking away from me. No, get back over here.
He lost his temper because his feelings were hurt. The officer made the split-second decision to detain him and arrest him at that point. And now he's painted himself into a corner. And when Paul asks what his reasoning was, he says, because you threatened this other police officer. But that's not what the paperwork says. He was actually charged with West Virginia's obstruction statute. So any obstruction here would have been this process crime that had to have occurred during this conversation that we see on the body cam. And what's the problem with that? Well, this is supposed to be a consensual conversation, right? And this is at Paul's residence. The officer that is there with his express or implicit permission. If he asks him to leave, he has to leave. So Paul expresses that he's not interested in continuing the conversation. He's got to go to work, and he goes to leave. Then the officer grabs him. Really, the obstruction would have to be Paul refusing to engage in this so-called consensual encounter and attempting to leave and go to work, which of course he had every right to do in a consensual encounter where he's not under arrest and he's not supposed to be detained. Therefore, there could be no obstruction here. And regarding the alleged terroristic threats, Paul says he wishes that he had a firecracker so that he could startle a police officer and he'd have a heart attack. I mean, all right, he wishes he had an M80. I mean, that doesn't even come close to an actual true threat under the oodles of case law out there, defining what a threat is as opposed to what it actually was or other protected speech.
Anything in your waistband?
No.
I raised him. I know him too. That's why I came down here to talk to him.
I don't understand that. I say he's on that shit. He's got that shit in him. That's all I can say.
Because
he's not like that. I mean,
he's never been that way.
He's been fine for. I mean, his grandpa just died not long ago. He spent 3 years taking care of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's been. And I don't know what's going on. He's just got a lot of confusion going on right now. And I'd say he got in that dope last night.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure, but I'd say that's what's happened. So.
Because I mean, honestly, I wanted to come down here and talk to him because I have.
Well, yeah, I heard you being respectful, and he's got to tell himself. I don't understand that either.
But when you're saying that when you're taking pictures of my deputies doing their job, and then you're saying you're going to throw M80s at them.
Well, I understand
that's a threatening.
I mean, that's a threatening manner, and yeah, it would be. It would be.
Not to mention the deputy wasn't following him. He was literally parked in front of the hot dog house running radar.
Right. Yeah.
And
I see him down there sitting all the time.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
there's nothing wrong with that.
We've had a lot of drug activity down through here.
Right.
We've been getting complaints.
I understand that.
So we're working on it. And
right. I understand that. There's a lot of people running around down here.
For him to make some of the comments that he's making, I'm not going to put up with that. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. So
I appreciate it. Like, what was your name? Alrighty, sir.
All right,
here's his stuff. I mean, I'm not going to take this stuff.
all right, I'll get it. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry you had to see that, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks, sir. Thanks, guys. I'm going to still roll. That subject's also going to be under arrest at this time.
There's a little bit of conversation that takes place in the police car. It's difficult to hear what's being said, but the officer wrote this in the police report. Once Mr. O'Brien was placed into the car, he stated he wished this officer would be a civilian because he would do harm to him. further making derogatory comments to this officer.
That's fine with me, Paul. I've been doing this job for... Okay, that's fine. Okay. That's fine, go right ahead. You have the freedom to do that. You have no right to threaten my officers either. Okay.
Watch your step.
Push, man. Goddamn. Off and rolling.
Let's see.
I'll stand.
Stand, do whatever you want. Yeah. Stay in there.
So there he was in jail. Haha, very funny. He ends up spending 2 days in jail, strip searched, all that. I believe he was in solitary confinement as well for a period of time. He was charged with obstruction. So that was July of 2023. Then in October of 2023, it was dismissed. First time it goes to court, like boom, in 5 minutes it was dismissed because it was completely bogus. And here's the dismissal order right here. The prosecutor submitted a motion to the judge asking for it to be dismissed. And it says this: the state believes the facts as alleged by the investigating officer would fail to meet the elements of the crime charged to the defendant by a beyond a reasonable doubt standard for reasons that I've already explained. There was no obstruction because he had no obligation to stay there and talk to the officers. He could leave if he wanted to. He could ask the officers to leave if he wanted the officers to leave. They were going to attempt to force a consensual conversation on somebody. What it was is this is your typical goon squad visit where they show up to intimidate you, to send you a message. And when Paul really wasn't intimidated by that message, the officer got butthurt about it, and he decided just off the cuff to go ahead and arrest him right then and there. But he was not in a public place. He was on private property in the most protected place under the Fourth Amendment, which is within the curtilage of this guy's home. And according to the U.S. Supreme Court, a warrantless arrest cannot be made there. Default unconstitutional unless there's exigent circumstances, and there's not here. But he did still spend 2 days in jail. He was prosecuted for 3 months by the time the charges were dropped. Not only does the First Amendment protect freedom of speech, it also protects the right to be free from retaliation by a public official for the exercise of that right. The Fourth Circuit, where this is controlling case law, has warned that a plaintiff possessed the right to question or challenge the authority of a police officer, provided that fighting words or other appropriate language is not used, and that any resulting arrest under a general obstruction statute is violative of the First Amendment. But for the protected speech that Paul engaged in, he would not have been arrested that day, and he wouldn't have been prosecuted for 3 months. They therefore violated his clearly established First Amendment rights. They also violated his Fourth Amendment rights because this was an unlawful or unreasonable seizure. There had to have been a warrant first to arrest him in that place, even assuming that there was probable cause that he had violated some law. So there you have it. You have government filming itself violating somebody's constitutional rights. I mean, just egregiously, like, couldn't be much more clear. Although it didn't hold up in court, he beat the rap, but he didn't beat the ride. They got to drag him through 2 days in jail and 3 months of prosecution. That was the punishment for exercising his First Amendment rights, because they did not like the content of what he said, and they wanted to teach him a lesson. These sorts of constitutional violations cannot be tolerated in a free society. The problem is, nobody knew about it, at least not until now. So if you live in Taylor County, share this video. Show this video to your politicians. Ask them for an explanation. Ask them why they never even responded to Paul's complaint to the sheriff. Because if they've done it once, they'll do it again. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.